didn't want to just be stuck at a normal job every day. Like that's got to be boring. What's the ROI on going to a club at night? Like it's negative something. Right now, it's so easy to succeed. One of your videos, one of Mark's videos, you can see, wow, I'm losing a lot of money because I don't have all these upsells in place. My emails aren't good. I'm not using funnels to scale. Maybe that's why I'm not profitable. I would test around 4 different products a day. I test 2 on TikTok and 2 different ones on Meta. Too many winning products I didn't know what to do with, and they all work.
Hey everyone, Alex Fedotoff here, and today I have an amazing guest, Cody. Your last name is?
Chafee.
And you are from Utah. Cody's 21 years old, doing $1.5 million a month with his e-commerce business. This particular business he started 8 months ago.
Yeah, 8 months. It was back in October.
Back in October, doing $1.5 million a month, and he basically has no people on his team, which is very, very efficient. So those of you who are looking to get into business, or you already have a business, you want to see how to make your business more efficient, that's exactly what we'll be digging in today. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So with your business right now, how your e-commerce journey started?
Yeah. So it started kind of, after high school. I hated school, so I didn't want to go to college. So it's kind of, I didn't know what to do. So, it was kind of at that time where all the gurus were starting to pop up, everyone on YouTube and Instagram, everywhere you look, I made this much money online, everybody, man. And I was kind of like, well, maybe I can do that as well, right? So I think everyone kind of starts with looking it up on Google, how to make money online. So, I tried everything at the moment. Agencies, drop shipping, anything you can think of, I probably tried it. Nothing really worked. I tried this one course. It was an affiliate marketing course. I think I ended up losing like 20 grand at least because it was not a good course. I spent 3 grand on the course itself, and then it just ended up losing more in ad spend. So it was just a disaster. And, nothing really stuck until I kind of stumbled upon, just e-com and drop shipping. And that's where it really took off. I'd say about like a month into drop shipping, that's when I first made I think that's like my first 1K day, probably with dropshipping. So it was really, really quick, right? I tried everything else for like a year and a half. Nothing stuck. And then a month later, I'm already making $1,000 a day. So I'm like, wow, this is easy. This is so much easier than all the other stuff that I've been trying to do. So, affiliate marketing, agencies, all that. It was just, I spent, 5 months doing it and it wouldn't work. And then I spent 1 month doing dropshipping and boom, there I am. I'm already making money. I'd say within the first week, I got my first sale. So that was like the first time I saw any money at all. So that's kind of where it started. And then once, I got that first sale, it was just up from there. I didn't want to stop, Once you hear that first ka-ching on your phone, that dopamine hits and you got to just keep chasing it. You want your phone to just go crazy every single day with just the amount of notifications you get.
Yeah. So you mentioned like 1.5 years, you basically had no traction with your business. What kept you going throughout that time? Because most people would have given up by then.
Honestly, I didn't have anything else to do, I basically had to get, a few different jobs simply just because I kept running out of money, just trying different stuff, agencies, all that kind of stuff. Because all that costs money, right? Whether that be, affiliate marketing and you're doing, you're spending money on ads for someone else's product. You're spending money and you just keep bleeding money and you don't really want to rack up a fat, Amex bill that you can't pay off for 30 years. Yeah. So, you have to get a job to pay that off. So I kind of just, I got a job to be able to pay for whatever it was I was doing. And the only reason I didn't stop, even though, every day I was just failing, constantly. That's all you're doing, really, when you're trying to make it work. You're just failing every single day. It's simply because I just didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what else to do, and I didn't really have anything else to do. And I didn't want to just be stuck at a normal job every day. Like that's got to be boring, right? For the rest of your life. If I wanted to travel, I wouldn't really be able to do that. So that's kind of where I just decided to just keep pushing. And it definitely made it easier when you just have nothing else to do. Because where I am, I'm basically located at the top of a mountain, where my house is. I have no neighbors around me, nothing else to really distract me.
You said the house where you live is like, what, 10,000 feet or something?
Yeah, it's about that. It's at the very top of the mountain, no neighbors around me, just woods everywhere. So it's a cabin in the middle of nowhere. The internet connection's horrific as well. So, when you don't have any distractions, you can go very far. So if something's not working, it's the best place to be. Like whether that be just locking yourself into a room for 2 months, or that would be, going to a cabin in the woods. When you have no distractions, you have nothing else to think about. except how to make more money, right? Especially if the internet's really bad. It takes a long time to download an episode of your favorite show.
So you're very selective with
Yeah.
like what you're even like, which browser tab you're opening.
Exactly. Yeah, I can only have about 4 open at once, or else the bandwidth stretches a little thin. But yes, that's kind of why it's been, I would say, a little bit easier on my behalf. I don't have any friends pulling me in different directions. Don't have any activities going on. It's basically 30 minutes from the nearest gas station. So if I even want to go get lunch and spend time going to get lunch, I have to dedicate half hour there, half hour at lunch, half hour back. That's an hour and a half out of my day.
So this brand that you started like 8 months ago, that's already at $1.5 million a month. Like, how did the idea come to you? And in terms of the product research, like, because that's like the point where a lot of people are getting stuck. Like, how did you identify like which product to sell? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, I feel like when you're starting out, you don't know what works. You just, you're kind of throwing stuff at a wall. And that's what I was doing at that time. So before I stumbled upon, this product, I would test around 4 different products a day. I test 2 on TikTok and 2 different ones on Meta. I would end up creating more Shopify stores so I could test faster, because it's all I was doing 12 hours a day was just testing products. And so when you don't really have any prior experience to what works, you don't have any ideas of what niches work the best for you. You just gotta, on my end personally, I feel like you just gotta go through it. You just gotta test everything, see what works for you. Some people, they do really well in clothes. I was never able to make that work. Some people do well selling lights. Well, I was never able to make that work. And kind of different personalities gravitate towards different products, right? And so starting out, you just test everything. And, it's the same when scaling as well. You just got to test everything. So I spent, I think, around like maybe 2 months just testing every single product. I've had some products that I was able to scale to a little bit, like maybe 50K a month in the past. But then once those died off, because I didn't have at the time the expertise to keep it going, you just got to keep testing. That's the best thing you can do, because you're going to hit dry spots. Maybe a product dies out. You just got to keep testing. And that was what I was doing. I was just throwing, 4 or 5, I think my max was like 8 products a day at one time.
Wow.
I wasn't running the best ads, wasn't running the best website either, but that doesn't really matter as much when you have a really good product, something that you can really scale. Your ads have to look good. They got to convert, of course. Your website has to be somewhat clean. But you can get all that up pretty fast, I believe, if you're testing that fast.
So how did you find the product that you're selling right now?
Yeah, so I started doing ad spy softwares, and that never worked for me. I mean, some are really great, but me personally, I always felt like they were a little... If you can see it on an ad spy software, there's chances are someone else is probably selling it, right? And for me personally, I like no competition, because I want to be able to have, it's a blue ocean. I want to be able to do whatever I want with it. Don't have to worry about competitors for a while, find all the angles myself. And, especially when you don't have the creativity of what angles can work, it's hard to find a product someone else is selling and think, well, maybe this angle could work, because you haven't really tried it with another product yet. So I would just be scrolling TikTok for hours. Just scroll.
TikTok, not Facebook.
TikTok, yeah. I find most of my products on TikTok now. I am just basically scrolling. If I see a product that I think could be cool, I interact with it. I like it. Maybe I share it to myself. And over time, the algorithm kind of understands what you're looking for. And it starts, optimizing to show you what you want to see, which is just winning products. And it got to the point where it got so optimized. Every single time I scroll, I spend 5 minutes winning product. I could put it up. It was just profitable. Scroll a little bit more. 5 minutes later, winning product. I could put it up. 5 minutes later. So it got to the point where I would just have too many winning products I didn't know what to do with. And they all worked.
Wow.
Some you could scale, farther than others. And then eventually, if you have 50 winning products and you test all 50, you're going to find one that just goes crazy. You're going to find one that will outscale them all. And you can kind of tell on day one. Like, it's different. You've never seen this before. No one's ever scaled this before. This is going to be the next big winner. And it's open game from there.
So your process was like, okay, going through TikTok, identifying these like winning products or the products that you think would be winning, and then just like launching them on Facebook or launching them on TikTok?
Yeah. I'd either launch it on Facebook or TikTok. I just do them both, because some products work really well on TikTok. Some don't work as well on Meta. But, at the moment when you're testing everything, I see this product, I think, wow, this might do really well on TikTok. Throw it into this side. wow, this product might do really well on Meta, because older people might want this. So, I kind of differentiate the products and I throw, the product to this platform or this platform, depending on where I think it performed the best.
And what kind of creatives would you use to promote those products? Would you just download the...
Anything I could find. Anything I could find. Maybe I take creatives for a different product, someone talking about a different product, but since the product is so similar, do a little bit of editing here, a little bit of editing there. Now you got a creative that works for that product.
So you would just move fast and just like download or take content from other places instead of just creating your own content at first.
Right, because it takes so much time, right?
Right.
If you're gonna send out your product to a creator, and maybe that creator it's just horrible, especially if you don't know what ads work. It's very hard to ship a product out to somebody and know exactly what you want them to say, know exactly what you want them to look like, and all that stuff to resonate the most with your audience. So the best way to do it is just honestly download stuff off the internet and just throw it in your ad account and hope it works.
Okay. And so would you say like TikTok as a platform is the best product research tool?
Personally, that's where I found the most success because that's where people are throwing their new product reviews on. And it's so much easier just to scroll on TikTok for me than it is just Instagram. There's Reels now, but for me with TikTok, it's more trendy. You can find ads better, whether that be, on TikTok Shop, you're just scrolling, you see a TikTok Shop ad, boom, that's a really good ad you can run. Or stuff like that. Like TikTok it's more geared towards getting correct content that's more fast-paced and works better for ads.
Okay. And so you've had many of these potential winning products. Did one of them just outperform everything else, which is the product you're selling right now?
Yeah, basically. So since I had so many Shopify stores because of all of these products I would be testing all day, I had, let's say, 6 Shopify stores. I can run 6 of these products at the same time. And so that's what I would do. And then I found this one product that just outperformed everything like so drastically. Like I would say maybe one product it's at 20% margins, this other one's like 80% margins. Like it was basically free advertising. I would pay so little in ad costs. So that's what I would do. I just, I'd allocate all my budget to that one product because I get more out of ads. So if I spend $1, I'm getting like $10 back. It was insane. So I was like, well, these products are great and they're all winners, but I'm not making as much money from them. So let me go ahead and just put all my time, my effort, my resources into this one product and see, how far I can scale it.
Wow, this is interesting. So it's very lean, very fast way to test stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
Because it's, the typical approach is to like create your own content, build send product to creators. I mean, that process itself takes like 1 to 2 weeks. You can obviously use like AI UGC, but at the same time, you don't know what's working, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you kind of like just like gambling in a way.
Yeah.
Whether your piece of content would perform. For you, you just like went after something that was already like validated, it was already working, and trying if you could see scaling that with ads.
Exactly.
I love that. So after like that product started to get momentum, like did you cut everything else, all the other products you've been testing?
So a lot of them were hard to scale actually. So a lot of products, there's a lot of potential, but you can only get to a few $100s a day. And then it kind of starts getting capped out for some reason. Maybe, I've tested so many times in some products, you can only scale to $1,000, $2,000 a day in spend, and performance just kind of starts diminishing then. So
why do you think is that?
I think it depends on the product. For some products, I can kind of tell that there's so many competitors for the product that I'm almost acting as a retargeting ad account that I'm just collecting the scraps from other big brands. So my ads are just retargeting. So I'll get really great cost per purchases, but I can't scale it past $800 a day. So I can keep it at $100 a day, and I'll be at like a $5 CPA. As soon as I put that budget to $200 a day, it goes up to like $80 CPA. There's a few theories of why that is, but that's just how it is. So I'll just leave it there, right? It's still basically free money. Don't really have to manage it. I'll hop in to do customer service once every 2 weeks, and that's pretty much about it. I just leave it there. It just does its own thing, and I'll make a few $100 extra per day off it.
Do you still do that?
Oh yeah. I still have a few different stores that are at $100 a day budget, and I think the return on some is like a 5 ROAS.
Oh, wow.
60-70% margins on that.
That is a great, almost like cash flow machine.
Basically, it's just, it's basically a rainy day, rainy day account. In case the main brand goes down, I'm still pulling in a little extra money.
Wow, man, I love it. It's, you basically are not overthinking.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people overthinking when
Yeah.
it comes to like e-commerce.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to find something like super unique, and then trying to find like create like this very like fancy ads and just like spend a lot of time. Like there are people, for instance, that it would take them like several months just to launch a Shopify store,
Yeah.
just launch their first ads. And for you, it's like you're basically moving so fast and getting stuff to the market so fast. It's not the ideal structure, obviously, because sometimes if content is borrowed, right, there could be some other issues with it, like DMCA and stuff like that. So it's not ideal for the long term, but in terms of the initial validation, it's a very fast and very lean way to move.
Yeah, exactly. I think, the faster you can put stuff up, the faster you're going to fail. The more fails you got behind your back, you can succeed a lot faster.
Yeah, for sure, man. So you have pretty much no people on your team still, and you're doing 1.5 million per month.
It's pretty much just me.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Wow. So what's your process looks like now? So like you started getting traction, right? Like obviously there've been like you didn't go like from $0 to $1.5 million per month in 1 month. But like what is your workflow looking like right now in terms of like daily like tasks? Like what do you do in terms of just maintaining this performance and pushing it farther?
So it's always the activities that that make you the most money always have to come first, right? And that's typically going to be your front end. That's going to be your your creatives, Meta ad performance, Google ad performance, all that stuff. That always comes first, because if those are bad, nothing else really matters because you're not getting money in. So for me, it would be the first thing I would be doing is I'd be editing ads myself. Right. I feel like oftentimes I can see the vision a lot better than other people can. Like if I were to hire an editor, I can see and I know exactly what's going to perform, and I can just spend 20 minutes making that ad. And since all I've been doing for 8 months is just learning about my audience, the people who buy, I know exactly what ad is going to resonate with my audience more than anybody else will. So I can spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day in my CapCut, whatever, just editing an ad, and I know it's going to be fantastic, a lot better than an editor will. Even though I've been training them for who knows how long, I can still edit them way better than they can, and the performance will always be better.
So that video editing skill, for instance, right? Because it's one of the very crucial skills. Some people have it, some people don't have it, some people become better at it over time, some people don't. Like, how was that learning process for you? Like, have you been editing videos for the last 5 years, or you just acquired that skill set on the go?
Yeah, so when I first started, my video editing skills were horrific. They were so bad. I was using the tool that is integrated into the TikTok ads manager. That's what I was using to edit my videos for the first time. I didn't know CapCut was a thing back then. I just was like, oh, they have a tool, so let me just use that. It was horrific. The worst tool ever. It would take me about 2 hours to create one 10-second ad. It was horrible. So I was just like the worst video editor you could possibly find out there. It was terrible. But the more reps you get in there, the better it's going to be. You're going to know what works. And after doing it for 2 years, you're going to figure out really quick how to navigate ads, how to navigate CapCut or whatever it is that you're using. And you're going to be able to get really good quality. You're going to know what to pick, right? You're going to know what video goes where, what soundbite goes where, and it's all going to flow together the more reps you get in.
And in terms of understanding your customer, which you mentioned is, one of the most crucial skills. Like, what helped you the most to truly like understand your customers and kind of like what would they react to?
Yeah. So when first starting this store, I think I didn't really know what my customer wanted. I had a few ads that performed well, but I didn't know what angle they resonated with the most. I didn't exactly know who they were. So what I did is I went ahead and all I did all day was make ads. I would create like 100 different ads per day, each one targeting a little bit different of a person. And so when you have 500 ads out there, you're going to figure out exactly what ad performs the best, what angle performs the best, what sound will perform the best. You know everything about your customer because you have 500 pieces of content with all data on them, and you can analyze which one to see what your customers resonate with the most. So just sheer volume and just putting so much material out there that you're going to find out everything about your customer within those ads.
Do you know your like win rate on your ads right now?
Yeah, so currently I think my win rate is maybe 1 out of every 3. That
Okay.
is with both me and my editors doing it. If it's only me, I would say I have like a 75% success rate. Very rarely would I get one that doesn't hit.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
but
Wow.
when I first started, I had maybe a 10%. So out of
Uh-huh.
those 500 ads, there wasn't too many that would actually perform well.
And until today, is your process like still the same? For example, if you want to launch new ads, you still go on TikTok, you still see what's working there, and then you're repurposing those ads
Mhm.
on Facebook, or what's the
It's
process?
definitely changed a bit because DMCA's are a huge issue.
Yes.
You don't want to build a brand off of someone else's content. That's just a recipe for disaster. Eventually your ship's gonna go down. Your store's gonna get taken down if you're running someone else's content. It's basically it is inevitable, right? The goal is now just to get away from stealing someone else's content, get your own content. Most of the content that's hitting really well now, it all comes from me. I don't steal anything anymore. So, but when you're starting and let's say you're testing all these angles, you gotta take content, unfortunately, or else you're gonna spend a year trying to get all these creators, finding out the right creator, finding out the right, is she blonde, is she brunette, how old is she, is it a dude, is it not a dude, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So the best way to do that is, of course, ripping content. But once you know your audience, you definitely have to, find creators and tell them what to do and get your own stuff going.
So with that, like with your creators, for example, like do you give them like a lot of kind of like scripting, a lot of information, a lot of briefing on what the content needs to look like, or they kind of just freestyle it?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the person. Some you can kind of just say, "Hey, here's the product. Make something great out of it." And the creators that know what they're doing, they're going to be able to make something really fantastic. But some creators are just they don't know what's going on. So you got to be very specific. There's a lot of going back and forth with them. You got to say, "Hey, can you move your right arm this way? You're very stiff. Can you make this expression?"
Yeah.
You want to basically be looking for actors instead of creators, whether that be like on Upwork or something.
You also mentioned when we had a conversation previously that you're using a lot of images. So do images outperform the videos for you?
For this specific store, they don't. Videos actually perform a lot better than images do. I've tried a lot of images. Some perform decently, but we've kind of started to steer away from that simply because there's just a better ROAS on the specific on videos. Like images just don't perform as well.
And with videos, like you go like vertical, like only like TikTok kind of format, or you have different formats.
We're doing everything. We're always testing different stuff. At the beginning, those were the best performers. But now we're doing more VSL styles. Those are starting to perform pretty well. We're always just trying new things, and oftentimes when you're testing, different styles are going to die out eventually. You can only put so much spend behind it, right? Eventually, you can spend $1 million on this one ad, but then it starts dying out. And then you got competitors coming in, and they're going to run the same style that you're trying to run. And so you always got to be innovating in the space to stay ahead of the people who are coming in and trying to copy you.
Right. You mentioned also this brand has the subscription.
Yeah.
Like what percentage of your sales are subscription?
I would say around 20%.
So 20% of people subscribe to your product.
Yeah.
Very cool.
20%. Yeah. We're working a little bit more to get that up. Recently, we've shown just on A/B testing, we've gotten up to 40%. So
Wow.
that's really, really high. So we're really happy with that one. But it doesn't. Sometimes if you want a high subscription rate, you're gonna maybe not have as high an AOV, so you might be less profitable upfront. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons. And if you don't, if your customer only subscribes for 1 month, that might not necessarily be worth having a high subscription rate. If your front end is just drastically more profitable.
Right. Do you use funnels?
Not really. We have a basic kind of advertorial. But we're still testing some landing pages. Those seem to be performing pretty well. Currently, the main landing page we're using is just an advertorial that's where you buy it as well. So it's just a simple one-page advertorial, and it just goes to a product, a checkout, and that's about it.
Oh
It's
wow.
very basic, very lean. There's not much going on. because the audience is a lot younger for this specific product. If I had, if I'm targeting 60-year-olds, I'd probably do more funnels.
Right.
And less very simple, easy to navigate, impulse buy, that kind of style.
What's the price point for the product?
About $50.
$50.
$50.
Was it something you just like tested? For example, you tested advertorials, landing pages, standard product pages, all of these things, or was it something that you just ran from day one?
Yeah, so from day one, I always test with a really basic, a basic product page. Super simple. You just have the product. That's the first thing you see, the product, buy button, a little bit of information, below. And then I realized that it's kind of hard to scale past that. So I think I was maybe at 10K days with the basic product page, and I was like, well, let me go ahead and try, a listicle here. So I went ahead and created a listicle. Day one, now I can scale it to 30K days, right? Just immediately. I'm like, wow, this is working so much better. I try different listicles, I try different product pages, and for some reason, the exact text, the exact photos, everything that I had on day one outperformed everything I'm testing. And it's still doing that to the day. Like, I cannot get it better. I don't know why. But for some reason, everything I had, even down to the shipping prices, the product prices, everything, it was almost perfect on day one. I just got crazy lucky. Like, it's just insane. And so we're still testing, of course, because we want to make it better, but we can't. Like, I don't know how to make it better.
Do you still test new products?
Not really. I'll test different products if I'm gonna launch it on the store in the same niche. I'll test a different product just to get more customers into my email list so I can retarget them and create almost an ecosystem of products. Because if they're going to buy one product in one niche, they're probably going to want a few different more. So, I'll run a few different products, maybe at $500 a day. That's kind of, that's as most I can scale those specific ones. But it's always good to have different products in case something happens, right? You run out of inventory. It's always good to not have, all your eggs in one basket and to be able to kind of, navigate, a DMCA a little bit easier.
Right.
Because that will, fake DMCAs are everywhere. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, some clown, some fake, scammer is going to come after you and, say it's actually his product.
Yeah.
And maybe it goes down for a day, but it's all right because you got all these other products that are also selling. And so you're still getting revenue in.
So after what you have seen and you've tested at this point, like many different products, like how important do you think the product is to overall success of e-commerce business?
I would say it's 50% the product and 50% the actual creatives themselves. Because if you have a really fantastic product but your creatives are horrific, it's not going to sell. Right? And it's it's the same thing. If you have a really great creative but your product is horrific, it still won't really sell. So both kind of go in line, right? You need both a really good creative and both a really good product. Having a great product makes it a lot easier because it's so much easier to sell. There might be more angles to use with it. There's so much more to do with it. So I'd say, the product is pretty important.
And if you were to launch like a new brand from scratch today, knowing what you know now, would your approach be any different than the one that you had like 8 months ago?
Definitely, yeah. So now I know it works now, right? When I was starting out, I did not know what was working, so I just tested everything. But now I know specifically what works for, how I like my ads to be, how I like to advertise, what audience I know the most about. So I can very easily find a product and I just know it's going to hit just because I've made ads very similar to the ads that I know is going to crush with the product, or something along those lines where at this moment I just know it hits, right? Like I just find products all the time. Like, yeah, I know exactly what ad would work best for this product because I've tested so many ads, tested so many products. So when you have all this information, all this knowledge behind you, you just know what's going to hit, what's not going to hit, almost basically how far you can scale each product as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned ads and becoming like better with ads is one of the most important factors that have contributed to your success. If you were to start today, right? Like, let's say you have no experience, but you kind of like know what you need to focus on. What is the 80-20 in becoming good with ads?
Testing. I think you gotta get out there. You gotta start testing. You just gotta put in the work, and it's gonna take a long time probably, or it might not take long at all. Like some people, you see them, and it's the first product test that hits, but that's so rare. right? So you got to test all these products, got to test all these creatives. You got to test to find what angles are working, what's not working. I do research on other brands, see what ads they're running, what hooks is performing the best. So definitely, sometimes it's very important to take a step back and do a lot of research just in what creatives and offers as well that's performing the best. Because different years, different offers perform better than others. So if you can also, have a great offer, that's also very important. Have a great offer in there as well. That's gonna, you can definitely see a lot easier if your product's gonna, be a winner or not.
So for you today, knowing what you know now, would you do that research about offers, the angles, who's doing better on TikTok or like on Facebook ad library? Like where would you do that research?
Probably TikTok still. For me, with TikTok, doing kind of, if a product's going to work within like the first $100, maybe even $50, right? So even testing on TikTok, it's so much easier. You can get stuff up a lot faster. After day one, if it's going to hit or not, right? With Meta, it might take a little bit longer. 3 days up to, and you got to spend 300 extra bucks. So testing products on TikTok, finding products on TikTok, it's just so much easier, so much faster. You get so much more speed going. Less ad account bans, a lot less ad account bans on TikTok. Your profile probably won't go down. You won't have you won't get shadow banned or something, right? It's a lot more fluent.
And so with TikTok, let's say if you wanted to test the product, would you drive traffic to your website?
Yeah, 100%.
And it could be profitable?
Typically, yeah. The goal is, of course, to be profitable. It'd really suck if I wasn't making money off of an ad. If I put money behind it, if I put my Amex behind it, and say, here, TikTok, I need you to show my ad to these people, and they max out my card, and I didn't make any sales. That would not be good.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. So for you, like, what things were the most helpful in just up leveling like your skills on this journey besides testing and just learning from the experience? Like, where did you learn about different things that you apply to your business?
Yeah, I think having a community around you is very important. Having people that are on the same path as you, that you can learn from, people that have already been through what you've been through. I think one big mistake I made is I didn't have someone who's done what I was trying to do. I was trying to do it all myself, and I didn't really reach out to people who have been through whatever you're going through, because stuff happens. Maybe your processor goes down and you don't know what to do, right? That might be the reason you stop. But if you had, let's say, a mentor in front of you that said, oh yeah, my processor, my ad account went down as well, here are the steps that I took. And so instead of wasting a month trying to figure it out yourself, you can just ask somebody and they'll help you out, and you can get it back up and running within a day. And having a community of people that at the same level as you, also trying to scale their business, testing products. You can also learn what they're learning from as well. So talking to them, having a community around you of people above you, and that can really help you out is the most important, honestly.
So I know you're in our community in Dark Lords. Do you enjoy it?
A fantastic community, really fantastic. The amount of information, the amount of, it's one of the few communities that have so many people that they all know what they're doing, right? You don't really have any imposters. If you need something, there's somebody in there that can help you out. And it's happened a lot. Like I've had, within the month, like 3 big issues. I'm like, I need a fix for this. And someone's like, hey, no worries. I sent you a DM. Here's the guy I'm using. I use them and the problem solved. Instead of me having to vet through 100 different applicants or finding an applicant, someone already did it for me, basically. So it's saving me time, it's saving me money. I'm not losing as much money because, if an ad account goes down and I need a fix for that, there's someone in there that can help me out. So whatever happens, it's really great to be in a community full of people that have, been through it.
Yeah, by the way, I'll drop the link here for the Dark Lords community. We have criteria for people joining. It's a free community, but it's only for people that are already in business doing at least $50,000, $100,000 a month. So if you're in that range, there should be a link below, so you can request to join. We'll review your application and we'll get you in. So you also watched. I remember we had a conversation. You watched Mark's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel. You got some good insights from there as well.
Amazing insights, yeah. And I think another big issue is that you don't know what you don't know, right? There's a lot of stuff about Facebook ads, scaling that I had no idea it even existed until I would, watch your YouTube video or watch Mark Bill's brands, like feedback score. I didn't even know that was a thing until I'm watching your YouTube video. I'm like, wait, what's this? Is this why my ads are performing? That wasn't why. I just had horrific ads. But it's definitely something that I got to be worried about now. Maybe my feedback score is messed up. So there's so many things that you don't know about until you watch perhaps one of your videos, one of Mark's videos. You can see, wow, I'm losing a lot of money because I don't have all these upsells in place. My emails aren't good. I'm not using funnels to scale. Maybe that's why I'm not profitable, right? Maybe I'm at a break even, but then I'm like, oh wait. Well, if Mark's using this funnel, maybe I should try using this. And wow, now I'm at 20% margins. There's so much stuff that you just don't know about until someone tells you, hey, this could be an issue or here's a fix. And so, I mean, specifically in all your videos, they're like 40 minutes long, I think. There's so much information in there. And a lot you won't be able to find just in a random community or a random course that you pay $50 for, right? They might teach you how to get your first winner, maybe. But, you're going to stumble through some issues that they did not tell you about. But thankfully, you had the videos you could tell me about, hey, make sure you have this specific profile and ad account structure set up. So if something goes down, you have a backup profile. Didn't know I really needed that until I watched, I think, Mark's video maybe. And he was like, yeah, you should have like 3 profiles maybe and a BM for pixels, a BM for page. And I'm like, wait a minute, everything's on one BM. You're saying if this goes down, I lose everything? And it did go down, but that was before I watched the video. But now, thankfully, because of videos, I had all these backups. Right? You don't know you need backups because you've never been through it before. But
And so if you would have like a conversation with Cody like 2 years ago, just before getting into this whole space, like what would you tell him? What advice would you give him?
I mean, you're basically in the business of just constantly putting out fires. Right. I mean, that's what most of it is. It's just issues. Right. And you get used to it. It just becomes part of the game eventually. But when you're first starting out, most of the time it's just issues upon issues upon issues. Ad accounts going down, processing issues, customer issues, fulfillment issues. It never ends. But, you start learning from it and it doesn't get to be as daunting as when you first get an email from Shopify saying, hey, we decided to put all your funds on hold. Right. I think that was the first issue I had was Shopify put all my funds on hold. I was like, well, now what do I do? And at the moment, I didn't have anyone, a mentor, that could help me out and say, oh, don't worry about it. I didn't know that I shouldn't worry about it. And, your funds will hopefully come off hold. Instead, I decided to go to a different processor that they were like, yeah, okay, we'll take care of you. I put my application, started putting all my revenue through them. I was scaling through them. I ended up not having a payout for like a month. And I was like, hey, is my payout coming? They're like, yeah, it's going to come tomorrow. Never came. And then they put like a 160-day hold on all my funds. And I had no one to tell me, hey, either don't use this processor or here's another processor that I've used or, hey, just wait out the Shopify hold. Right? All these things I could have done instead. But instead, because I didn't have someone to help me out or a community or people who've been through it, I decided to go through the hardest route and I learned, the hard way. And so honestly, most of e-com is just constantly fixing issues. I'd say that's primarily what my job is, just fixing issues.
And in terms of your mindset overall with with business, over the last 8 months, right? Because if you think about it, you're 21 years old, right? You got the business to 1.5 million a month, and with that, it's already top 1% of all businesses, right, that exist, and you got there in a very short period of time. So how your mindset has evolved in the last 8 months as an entrepreneur and as a business owner?
Yeah. It's definitely changed a lot. I remember when I was first starting, I just care about how profitable my ads were up front, right? When I first got, the winner, I was like, okay, I just got to make sure they're profitable. But now it's changed where I'm looking, 6 months in the future for, making sure I have enough stock to scale. Your mindset has to change so much. Now I got to navigate, what product I'm going to launch next for my store or, who knows what it could be. I mean, now I'm looking 6 months over a year into the future. Whereas before I was looking, I hope my ads are profitable tomorrow. Right. But now if, I have, let's say an unprofitable day, thankfully I've set up, enough systems that whether that be with subscriptions, recurring revenue, recurring, customers, emails, I have enough, in the back end that if my ad account goes down or if it's unprofitable, I'm still making money. So my mindset has definitely switched where I'm thinking long term now. I'm not thinking with just, ads being profitable, because that's really all you care about when you first start out. Understandably so, because that's all you care about. You got to make money somehow. But it completely changes. You're not as worried about, profit margins, because you're going to make the money back the next month, right? That's kind of where, or in 6 months, right? Sometimes if you get a subscription, you got to think, well, I paid, $50 for this to get this one customer that subscribed. Let's say my cost of goods was $20. I'm down $30 on the first customer, but thankfully they'll pay me back in 6 months. So it's a complete change.
Kind of like thinking more long term.
Yeah, long term, 100%.
You mentioned also at the beginning a very good point about that you live like in a very like distant area, and there's not a lot of distraction. They're happening. I mean, you're a young guy. You could go like there's dating, there is partying. Like at your age, that's what pretty much everyone else does. So, what would you tell to someone who's maybe like surrounded by all of that, right? But at the same time wants to succeed in business? Like, would you recommend them to kind of like just disattach themselves from all of the noise and just focus on the business? Or do you think it's not for everyone?
I mean, honestly, for me, clubbing, all that stuff, it's just a waste of time, right? Like, to me, it's just not worth it. I think it's much more worth it just to lock yourself in a room and just stare at a computer, right? That's kind of what I would be doing instead. Personally, I just don't like loud noises, right? I've been to a clubs. It's not really my scene. I like quiet. So, but if they're kind of in a similar position where you got, friends that are, pulling them, this way and that way, and let's go to this club, let's do this. I think you kind of just have to decide if it's worth it or not, right? If you want to, be successful, you got to look into the future and where, what's the ROI on going to a club at night? Like it's negative something, I don't know. But what's the ROI of staying at home and staring at a laptop and grinding it out and testing 50 products, right? It's going to get you to where you want to go.
So kind of like choosing your priorities and also making the necessary sacrifices if necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's fascinating because it was like the playbook is literally there, right? Like in terms of like making e-commerce work, like making any business work, it's all pretty kid because we have access to AI, we have access to all of the like tools and resources these days. The information is freely available. Like you said, you go on TikTok, you can find like tons of ideas of products to sell. And if you put enough effort and attention to it, like you can make it work, right? But at the end of the day, it's how much effort, how much focus are you really putting into that as an individual, as entrepreneur, in order to make it happen?
Exactly.
And with that, all of these distractions that you might be spending a lot of time on, like might be pulling you away from achieving that goal.
Exactly. And I think right now it's so easy to succeed. It's so easy because everyone else is going to clubs, right? There's honestly not that much competition, and every day new AI comes out, new programs that just make it so much easier. Every day that goes by, it just gets easier to make a lot of money. So, and I think eventually it's not going to be as easy, whether that be, and because of terrorists, who knows why, right? But so it's always better to just get in now while it is easy, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future, because it might get a lot harder.
For sure. Cody, thank you so much for joining me today. A great entrepreneur. Like when I met you last time, it was such an inspiring, just like story, and just a true testament of what is possible when you just like lock in and work on something for just like with laser focus.